we have lived in Buenos Aires for over 2 years now. And a lot of the times people ask us, why Buenos Aires? You can go anywhere in the world, why here? And I wanted to be able to articulate like some of the most important things in Buenos Aires that I think are special and that I think are unique and that aren't talked about a lot. I also want to keep this video about like stuff that you would see when you're walking outside observing the city, not like food that you would buy or even about like how people treat you, because obviously it's very good. But I just wanted to talk about like just the vibe of the city. And of course, food is going to influence that, and the people who built the city and who live in the city are going to influence that as well. But I think those are two topics that like deserve their own dedicated video. And if I tried to put it all in one, it wouldn't be fun. In my opinion, the most important thing that contributes to the vibe of the city here are trees. There are so many trees throughout the city. So many streets in so many neighborhoods are lined with trees on both sides. And we're talking ginormous trees. We're talking trees that totally cover the sidewalks in shade when you're walking in the summer, which is so important. It gets so hot here. You need the shade from the trees in the summer. So not only do I think they're beautiful, I love looking at them, I also love that they give you shade. Like, it's a necessity. They're needed. The trees are needed. When I look down the street in this city, the first thing I'm looking at is the trees. The most beautiful thing, no matter where I am, are the trees. I cannot understate how important to me, and in general, the trees are to the city. And I think that's one of the biggest differentiations compared to other cities I've been to. Of course, other cities have trees, obviously, other cities have parks, other cities have grass, but like Buenos Aires is to another level. Like, almost every single square inch is covered in shade from trees. They're very tall trees. They're ginormous trees. They are not small at all. I wish I wasn't making this video in winter because half the trees don't have leaves on them, but like we still have a ton of trees, as you could see, that don't lose their leaves in the winter. I sound like crazy right now. I know I sound crazy. Whenever like somebody asks Chanel and I like, oh, why this city? Why Buenos Aires? The first thing I always say is trees, because I think it's the most important thing for me as somebody who's outside a lot. It's just so important to me. And you know, maybe it contributes to the good air.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I noticed, well, when Chanel and I first came in 2022, Max had just turned 1. And it was our first time without him. So maybe it was something I noticed because, you know, I was missing my little puppy. But one thing that astonished me the first time I came here, it hasn't wavered. I haven't lost it. I still think it's crazy every single time I see it, in a good way, is how well trained and how socialized the dogs are here. Whenever you go to any of the parks that I mentioned, a plaza, no matter how big or small, a big park, you will see dogs off leash. And they just know what to do. I've never had a bad experience with a dog off leash in this city in the years that I've lived here. They know how to cross the road. They know how to be by their owner. When they stray away from their owner, they know how to get back to their owner. I've never seen an issue with these dogs. There's this saying that dogs look like their owners. I don't know about that. I don't know how similar Max and I look. But Argentine dogs act like Argentines because they are so sociable. Even if they're off leash, even if they're on leash, most of the time they'll come up, sniff, they'll come up to Max, they'll sniff him, they'll say hi, they'll go about their day. Even the dogs here are polite. It's like the dogs learned how to be sociable from their owners, which is obviously true, but I think you know what I'm saying. The density of dogs here in the city is crazy. And honestly, if you see a dog on the street, there's a 30% chance that it's off leash. And if it's off leash, it's fine. Literally right behind me, it surprised me. There's a dog off leash just playing fetch. You might see a dog waiting in the supermarket. You might see it in dog parking. And sometimes you might just see it waiting outside without any leash at all because they are just that well trained. It's absurd to me how well trained these dogs are. A city with a dog on every single corner is infinitely more like fun than like a city without them, obviously. With that too, your neighborhood might have a dog that just roams around all day, which, it's a little surprising at first, obviously. Might take you off guard at first, but in the end, it's It's almost like your neighbor, honestly. In one of our first apartments here in the city, we had a neighborhood dog that would just roam around all day. And one of the first times we saw it, we thought, you know, it didn't have a collar on. We thought it was like a lost dog. So like we went to go talk to it. We were walking, we were like following it, and like it got nervous and then just like walked to its house. We looked so silly just walking around and following this dog, because I'm sure everyone else in the neighborhood knew that was the dog from the Kiosco and knew the neighborhood dog, but we look worried over a dog that's just in the neighborhood. But yeah, no, I think I know the downsides of having a neighborhood dog that isn't supervised. I get it. That's not a responsibility I can ever grant to Max. That's not something I can ever do with Max, but I appreciate being around it nevertheless. I was gonna start to head back home, but I'm here at this park. I actually wanted to do an experiment. I wanted to see, one, how many dogs I see in just this little park, and two, how many of them are off leash. So I'm about to go see right now. So in this park, I saw 12 total dogs, and 8 of them were off leash. Like, that's so crazy. A majority of the dogs in this park were off leash. I think in general it's about 50-50 in a park, but it's just so nice. Like, the dogs can just be themselves. They could chill out if they want to. They could like run and play if they want to, but there are no problems here. Like, if you love dogs, if you love being around dogs, love touching random dogs, this is the city for you, man. I'm here in Microcentro to talk about another thing that I really like about the city. That is going to be architecture. So, of course, when anybody first comes here, they go to Recoleta, they go to Retiro, to Microcentro, and they look at the architecture, and obviously they're blown away. I was blown away. But being here for a couple of years now, that's not something that I see every day. I don't go to Recoleta every day. I don't go to Microcentro every day. And of course, there are influences of European culture all across the city. One of my favorite examples of this are buildings with rounded corners. I'm just a sucker for those. But one of the most important things that, in my opinion, that gives Buenos Aires its vibe is the overabundance of balconies. New buildings have balconies. Old buildings have balconies. There is just an overabundance of balconies. And it's nice because, like, you can kind of see what somebody's living space is and what somebody chooses to do with their balcony. I would rather look at everyone's balcony as opposed to, like, you go to Puerto Madero and you're just seeing glass. As somebody who walks in the city, obviously every single day, all of the time, the presence of balconies are way more important than the European feel. But you can argue that the balconies are influenced by European architecture. You could. I know nothing about architecture, so I'm not going to argue back. One of my favorite things about balconies, too, is that it saves you from the rain. I remember, like, Chanel and I's first trip to the grocery store after we moved here. It started downpouring, and we were just, like, running and hiding under balconies. So whenever it rains, I think about that, nostalgic memories. But the balconies are genuinely useful for everybody. I think the overabundance of balconies has a lot to do with the weather, of course. There's really only 2 months down here that you really don't want to go outside, like June and July. In August, it starts to warm up, and by the end of August, it's basically spring. So I think that's one really big reason. If you compare that to the cities in the Northeast, like New York or Boston, like, we have winter for like 5 or 6 months, so a balcony space would kind of be wasted. I think having like a little screenshot, almost like a front yard of what everyone does with their balconies is really nice. Some people just use it for functional reasons. They just have their washer out there, they dry clothes out there. Other people, they put plants out there, they put furniture out there. I think it's super cool. When Chanel and I first came here for vacation in 2022, all those years ago, this is exactly where we stayed. That is La Seda. That is one of the busier streets in the entire city. But just a couple feet away, I guess, couple minute walk, right outside of our Airbnb, we saw this cute little park. It's so nice. I love it to this day. It's so nostalgic to me, obviously, but the point is, I'm getting sidetracked. Another reason why I think Buenos Aires has its unique identity is because of the number of parks that are in the city, in every single neighborhood. No matter where you are, you probably are really close to a plaza. Maybe that plaza's bigger and maybe it has a canal for dogs. Maybe it has, a playground for kids. Maybe it has a carousel for kids, which is like super common here, like weirdly enough. But the point is, if you need to just go and relax in a park, it's probably so close to you. But I came to this area because I feel like this area is pretty symbolic about how I feel about all of the parks in the city. And just a couple minutes from that busy street and from our Airbnb, you're at Avenida del Libertador. And obviously it's one of the busiest streets in the city, but that's not the important part. The important part is on the other side of it. You have all the way from before Núñez and all the way to Retiro, you could walk just through parks. It's insane because these parks aren't small, they aren't plazas, they aren't small, they're big. They're parks that you could sit and have a picnic at, and some of these parks like Triste Forbero, it doesn't even feel like you're in the city sometimes. Not only does the city have like greenery, like some plazas, parks where kids can play, but it also has huge parks that you can make an entire day out of. And these parks span the parks literally span throughout the entire city, and that's just talking about the north. Also have other insanely large parks like Parque Sarmiento, Parque Chacabuco, Parque Centenario. It's like insane the availability of parks in the city. And I'm not talking about small little plazas, I'm talking about very big parks. Of course, I also love that these parks are well used. It's always nice that the park isn't just you going out in the middle of the woods and seeing nobody. You could also people watch. I always love the ambiance of like everyone on the first nice day of the year going out and having a fun time, separate but together. Another reason why I think Buenos Aires feels unique, especially from someone from the United States, is that everything feels like homemade, artisanal. Everything here feels less corporate. For example, in the United States, most people just go and get their groceries from Walmart. They go maybe to Trader Joe's if they're in the city, and maybe they go to one or two places after that. Here, of course, you still probably go to the grocery store. But on top of that, you also go to the butcher. And on top of that, you also go to the fruit stand. And on top of that, you also go to the vegetable stand, which is sometimes 2 in 1. But everything is segmented in a way that feels old-fashioned comparatively and feels more wholesome and feels more fresh, and it feels more interactive. It feels like, oh, instead of just going to Walmart and getting everything I need, I'm going to say hi to the butcher. He's going to give me a recommendation. I'm going to tell him what I'm going to cook. He's going to give me a recommendation of what meat I should buy. He's going to say, hey, you're cooking this? Oh, use this chorizo. The way that things are set up in the city are set up to maximize interaction with other people. So, of course, if you want, you could live and Rappi everything every single day and DoorDash everything. No, you can't DoorDash. And Pedido Shot everything every single day. But there is a neighborhood feel to how you do every single activity. This also applies to neighborhoods themselves. So a neighborhood might specialize in something. For example, I've heard Matadero specializes in meat. If you want cheap meat, you can go there. I know that San Cristobal has a lot of restaurant equipment. Very random. I know a street right next to Abasto, 6 doors in a row, they all sell mannequins. It's everything is so specialized and specific here to a point where it actually changes how the city feels. It changes your routine, it changes how you interact with the city, it changes how the city looks, it changes how the city feels. A couple of other things that are smaller but I think are really cool is I think Buenos Aires is one of the better cities I've been to that is good for raising a family. There's so many parks, like I said. This is related to other stuff that I said, so it's not its own point. So many parks, so many playgrounds, so many schools, in my opinion, I think. But yeah, I think that's a big thing as well. There are a lot of cathedrals in Buenos Aires, and the difference between obviously cathedrals are Catholic and churches are more, can be more non-denominational, Christian. I think one big thing, or like one big difference between like a cathedral and like a normal church, is that cathedrals are open like comparatively a lot. Like being able to see like this old beautiful cathedral and knowing you can go in there, you could look around, you could pray if you want to. I think that's super cool. And too, with like cathedrals around the city, they're like tend to be a little bit older, so not only can you go into this like super cool building and observe it, it's, you know, it has like some of the European architecture a lot of the times, because those buildings just tend to be a little bit older. We're in Buenos Aires. It's a soccer country. Basically every single country besides the United States is a soccer country, but you could feel it. I'm not a soccer fan. I'm trying to get more into soccer. Honestly, I'm looking for a team. Even now I don't know Boca versus River. I don't know my team, or somebody else. I really don't know. I'm looking, so if you want to convince me, please do so. But like, this city loves soccer so much that even if there's a game, you'll see people walking, you'll see people being like making their way towards the game. But like, even in our house, no matter where it is, every single one we've ever had, if there's a goal, if there's something big, you could hear it in the streets. Like, we just had the Club World Cup, and Boca and River were both in the Club World Cup, and whenever they did something bad, we heard it. Whenever they did something good, we heard it, just from the streets. So I think that's pretty crazy. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty unique. This is just not even, this is kind of off subject, but I don't know how, like, you know, Argentines are like super prideful. Buenos Aires is the Paris of South America. I don't know how you guys let that slide. Every time I hear that, I like cringe a little. I'm like, ugh, I hate hearing that. It makes it sound like the city is like a little brother. This is not what Carlos Diaz would have wanted you to call the city, I think. I don't know. I always talk about Carlos Diaz, but I don't know anything about him. But I think Buenos Aires is super unique. I think, obviously, if you haven't been here, you should come here. But yeah, that's it.